Communist Party Congress, which has just closed. It wasn't very funny, so I won't trouble you with it. But the Congress is supposed to have mapped out a bold new future for China. What happens to people who have the temerity to think outside the orthodoxy? It'll provide a very early test of whether the country really is taking a new direction. From Beijing, Newsnight's Paul Mason reports on writers who work under a repressive state.
The Chinese invented writing, paper, and the printed book. But from the early days of pen and paper, they were also pioneers of censorship, book burning, and propaganda. Today, many Chinese novelists and historians are seeing their work censored or simply banned. I've been speaking to 3 of them about what it's like to have your thoughts suppressed.
In this village of 800 people, a dozen blood collection stations sprang up overnight.
Yan Lianke's novel, The Dream of Ding Village, is based on the true story of an AIDS epidemic that began when the government urged people to sell their blood to get rich.
Blood banks opened in the village market, at the village crossroads, and in the empty rooms of private homes. They even opened up in converted cowsheds. Throughout the village, blood-filled plastic tubing hung like vines, and bottles of plasma like plump red grapes. Everywhere you looked, there were broken glass vials and syringes, discarded cotton balls, used needles, and splashes of congealed blood. All day long, the air was filled with the stench of fresh blood.
Yan's novel about the scandal was published in China but disappeared after 3 days. It's now banned there.
In China today, one type of writing that's deemed unacceptable is when a writer looks too closely at China's reality. Another kind of writing that's unacceptable here is writing that brings back to life moments in China's history that are supposed to be forgotten. Also, if a piece of writing is too imaginative, then it's also deemed not suitable for readers. It's for these 3 reasons that books are seen as controversial or are consistently banned.
The Dream of Ding Village does not only tell the story of a scandal, it shows how rapidly manias can take hold in a society in the iron grip of one party determined to force the pace of growth.
At the beginning of the 90s, the whole country needed to develop very quickly. Everywhere needed money. And we must acknowledge that the people who sold blood were organized by the government to do this. More importantly, though, the environment at the time in China ignited people's desires and people's inner darkness. People desired money. They needed money. They earned money. They went crazy about becoming rich. And so they sold their blood.
China's new leaders have come to power pledging a crackdown on corruption. But the book-buying public are ahead of them. Chinese readers are devouring crime novels with stories of official skullduggery by the million.
I felt as though a heavy stone were pressing on my chest, choking off my breath. The boulder was corruption itself, and everyone who hated and fought it was Sisyphus.
Wang Xiaofang's crime novel, The Civil Servant's Notebook, tells the story of bureaucrats selling their souls and losing their minds as they struggle for power amidst a crooked system.
In China, we have a very bad tradition. That is that in this system, people worship authority. Worshipping authority has become part of our way of thinking, our way of life, like a religion. To give up a way of thinking, a way of life, a religion, is very difficult.
Without challenge, however, the boulder of corruption would grow larger and larger. Someone needed to be Sisyphus. to continually roll the boulder uphill even though it was bound to roll back down every time. But so long as we persisted, we might find a new meaning within our lonely, painful, absurd and despairing lives.
In real life, Wang Xiaofang was a civil servant, and his real-life boss was sentenced to death for gambling away $3.6 million of public money in the casinos of Macau. Wang's book has not been banned, but in the wake of the Bo Xilai scandal, China's most prominent corruption case for decades, he fears a book like this would not be published today.
I think that the system creates officials like Bo Xilai. One Bo Xilai may have fallen, but if the system does not change, there will be Liao Xilai, Zhang Xilai, Huang Xilai, Deng Xilai, Mao Xilai.
The background to the censorship is rising discontent. These pictures, shot on Saturday in Fujian province and uploaded secretly to the internet, show thousands of demonstrators and police vans overturned. The spark, a police car chase that injured bystanders, the underlying issue, corruption. And it's not just the present that exercises China's censors. One of their key obsessions is the past. Nowhere more so than over Mao's Great Leap Forward, which 50 years ago triggered the biggest famine in modern history.
In setting up the mess halls, homes were dismantled, and woks, basins, bowls, cups and other cooking utensils were requisitioned. Grain supplies were centralised. By the summer of 1959, the famine was intense.
Yang Jisheng's book, Tombstone, has sold 500,000 copies on the black market. It's been acclaimed in its English version, but it can't be published officially in China itself.
Tombstone has 4 layers of meaning. One is a tombstone to remember my father. The second is a tombstone for the 36 million Chinese people who starved to death. The third is a tombstone for this system, which caused the famine. The fourth is a tombstone for myself, in case anything happens to me, because writing this book has put me at risk politically.
Yang, a veteran journalist for the state news agency, spent years secretly compiling data on the famine, whose cause and scale were denied then by the propaganda and still are denied by the Communist Party today.
The basic reason why tens of millions starved to death was totalitarianism. In this kind of system, once a calamity occurs, ordinary people have no means of saving themselves.
During the Great Leap Forward, I was active in the Communist Youth League. When my father died of starvation, I thought it was something that was just happening to my family. I thought that his death was my fault because I hadn't gone home to pick wild plants for him. Only later, slowly, did I discover that it wasn't just a provincial problem or a local problem, and it certainly wasn't just my family's problem. It was a national problem. I am still a party member, although now I think communism is a fantasy. But I believe the party is still willing to do good for the people and the workers. I want to speak for the people. That's why I'm still a party member.
We know Chinese culture is a mixture of the ancient and the new. If China's people could read their own great modern literature, it would be richer still. But the new is controversial, and the government has no intention of freeing up right now. What's happening in Chinese literature is important because it mirrors what's happening on the internet and in millions of private conversations. There's a parallel universe of ideas out there just waiting to be expressed in the open.
My aim is to speak the truth, to act honestly and to be a real person. A writer should constantly pursue the truth. I want to tell my readers what really happened.
No regime in history has managed to suppress its own literature forever, but China's leaders intend to give it a go. Whether they succeed depends in large part on the power of writing.
Paul Mason, well, we must have talked too much earlier.